Learning to stand steady, as I discovered, didn't mean the ground stopped shifting entirely. One of the hardest parts of my new reality became learning to live with the worries that lingered, especially that persistent shadow of fear, the "what if it comes back?" This fear often crystallized around those regular checkups and scans. Scan days became these strange, charged dates on my calendar. Even now, the anxiety leading up to one is real, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach for days, sometimes weeks beforehand. I remember the first scan feeling utterly bewildering. The echoing clicks and bangs inside the MRI tube felt like being trapped in some sci-fi machine, and the waiting, both before and after, felt like torture. Over time, I did get used to the process. The sounds became familiar noise. I knew the routine. But familiar? Yes. Easy? Never. That core anxiety, that vulnerability of lying there while a machine looks for shadows, the agonizing wait for results, that never truly went away. What I learned I had to do, consciously, was find something positive, anything, to cling to during that time. Sometimes it was focusing on my breathing. Sometimes reminding myself of past good results. Sometimes just thinking fiercely about the people I loved and was fighting for. It was an active search for light in a mentally dark space. Beyond the scheduled scans, the fear could ambush me unexpectedly. It wasn't always logical. A random ache, a headache, feeling unusually tired one day. Things I might have ignored completely in my ordinary life before could suddenly send my mind racing down the what-if rabbit hole. Other times, there was no clear trigger at all, just a sudden wave of unease, a physical jolt of panic, or a dark cloud of intrusive thoughts settling over me. It was confusing. Was I reacting to something real, or was the fear itself creating the feeling? It often felt like being thrown back onto that emotional roller coaster without warning, sometimes wanting nothing more than to just curl up and hide until it passed. So how did I learn to live with this? A huge part of it, for me, became what I can only describe as trying to make peace with this new reality. Not resignation, not giving up, but an active ongoing effort to accept that this uncertainty, this possibility, was now woven into the fabric of my life story. I realized I couldn't run from it. Trying to ignore it only seemed to give it more power. For me, accepting it meant acknowledging the fear when it surfaced, but refusing to let it completely define my present or dictate my entire future. It felt like consciously deciding to swallow that difficult truth and integrate it, somehow, into my life. This process wasn't done in isolation. Feeling the steady support of my spouse, my family, knowing they understood I was doing my best even when fear flared, made that active acceptance feel more possible. That brings up the really tricky question. What did I do with the fear when it hits? Do I talk about it or keep it locked inside? This felt like walking a tightrope. Sharing the worry, actually saying the scary thoughts out loud, could sometimes feel like releasing a pressure valve. It could be a relief. But almost immediately I'd worry. Am I burdening the people I love? Am I just spreading my anxiety? I didn't want to constantly pull them down with my fears. Yet, keeping it all bottled up felt dangerous too, like letting negativity build up inside until I couldn't cope. It felt incredibly heavy, carrying it alone. What slowly emerged as essential was talking about talking. I learned I needed to have honest conversations with my spouse and closest friends, not necessarily about the fear itself all the time, but about my needs around sharing. Sometimes I needed to say, "I'm really scared today, can I just talk?" Other times, I needed to be able to say, "Today I need a break from talking about this, can we just watch a movie?" This helped them understand my needs, which could change from day to day. Sometimes I needed company to distract me or listen. Other times I needed solitude to process. My loved ones needed to know that I was doing my best, and that my needs would fluctuate. And I never underestimated the power of talking to professionals, therapists, psychologists. They offered a space where I could share these fears without worrying about burdening loved ones, and they provided real tools and strategies for managing the anxiety. Trying to handle this persistent, heavy worry entirely alone just wasn't realistic or healthy. It's often much bigger than any one person can handle internally. Reaching out for that help was an active step towards taking care of myself. Ultimately, dealing with these ongoing worries wasn't about finding a magic switch to turn them off. For me, it became about building a personal toolkit, the active acceptance, the conscious choice to focus on positive anchors, the vital support of loved ones, with open communication about needs, the guidance of professionals, and finding the courage, again and again, to face the fear without letting it win. I learned that living fully didn't mean living without the shadow of worry, but rather learning how to live a rich, meaningful, and hopeful life alongside it. Learning to navigate the landscape of our own worries is a quiet, courageous battle. It's how we find our footing and build a foundation of inner strength. But what happens when the internal storm gives way to an external reality? When the preparation is over and you find yourself standing at the starting line of the main event, Join me this coming Monday as we ask the question, is this really the start of the big fight? If this story feels important, sharing it with someone who might need it would mean the world. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what comes next, and for the complete journey, you can always find the link to the full book in the description below.